Governor Romney believes it's hugely important for us to get back to a sustained period of prosperity. Because if you step back, if you look at it globally, everything else that we want to do, in fact, everything else really that anybody wants to do in the country, everybody's agenda depends on sustained prosperity. And he thinks that it's hugely important in order to achieve that, for the economy to have access to affordable and secure sources of energy. He believes that the administration has erected artificial barriers. In fact, it's pretty much been their policy, pretty explicit, across a wide range of the traditional sources of energy to increase prices and to keep people from getting at it. The energy, they've used the regulatory powers of the government to control over the western lands and the Gulf, as well as EPA regulations to increase the price or to deny access to oil. They're considering regulating fracking, which would, I heard the last guest talking about shale gas, which would inhibit access to that. So federal leasing on federal lands is down, permitting on federal lands is down, production on federal lands of oil is down. The cap and trade regs that the EPA is considering would skyrocket the cost of electricity. That's the point of it. I mean, the president ran on that proposal. Governor Romney thinks that's self-defeating because it's going to undercut the prosperity that we need to achieve everything we want, including environmental quality, because we've got to have a lot of the remaining big environmental problems in the country require money to solve. And the government doesn't have any money. People don't have enough money. And also, in order to create the last speaker was talking about this, as economies mature and people become more affluent and feel more secure, that's when consumption habits change in the direction of more green types of consumption. So he thinks it's very important to get back to prosperity. It doesn't end with removing the artificial barriers to production and energy by the private sector.
So what specifically would he do? Give us a rundown of the 59-point plan on energy.
Regulate the government's control over federal land in such a way as to have fixed timetables for permitting, have fixed timetables for permitting nuclear plants, get the EPA out of the business of regulating carbon. It's not a pollutant anyway. And this idea of cap and trade to force up energy prices is self-defeating in the long run. There's a whole host of things that he would do. The states have regulated fracking quite successfully for 50 years. Doesn't see a reason for the federal government to get into that, although it could collect information in terms of best practices and the rest of it. So generally just a policy of removing the barriers. It's really as simple as that have denied access to the private sector to energy.